Hey everyone, button says that this is live. I'm alive, you're alive, so we're live. How you doing on Thursday here? In the West, we call it Thursday. Maybe the rest of the world.
Everyone.
Hey, there we go. That always gets your attention. So good afternoon. Welcome everybody. Thank you. Hello, Claudette. Wow. Brian, good to see you, all the moderators and everybody else. Trust your day is going well, and this is having an impact on you. I know by the emails and the comments just in general, people are waking up. The best one I've had yet was from a dear viewer, and they were of 72 years young. Hey, listen, it's the goal of everybody to try to get in as many days as you can. So she said, she said, this like triggered something, and I'm paraphrasing it, that she said, it woke me up. She said, basically, she says, I'm free. And, free from fear, free of the fear of death. You begin to understand how this crazy universe works when you begin to understand these principles. So, yeah, changing people's lives. And, little warning, as you become more aware, and if you meditate on these thoughts, folks, it's an adventure that will carry you forward for I don't know how many eons, because that's what happens. It opens the door for an individual soul and spirit to begin to ascend to the higher levels. When we begin to understand the laws and the principles that happens at each plane of existence, we become masters. And the title of today's is the third key, vibration, is the little sign says behind. Change your vibration, change your life, change your world. The people who have gotten extremely wealthy off of these principles have known this. In my past, there were people like Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale, Brian Tracy. I can just go on. They knew the Hermetic code. They knew these principles. And once you begin to master them in your life, you're going to become able to master those laws to work to your benefit. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the key is that you have to be aware of the traps. Now, for me, one of those traps is politics. I used to be a, super conservative, belonged to a very, very exclusive group. And, what I realized, because the calling was there, we all have to comply with destiny, necessity, and fate. But that doesn't mean we have to accept what the cause and effect is. We could become causers instead of becoming effective. So it's just a matter of how you look at that. And politics, for me, when I began to realize they're all on the same side. The illusion is that they get you to vibrate at such an imbalance that your heart actually increases in its rate of beating, your blood pressure goes up, your blood sugar begins to happen. This is what happens. This is where we are today in this country. Dare I say the world. In the United States, we're tearing ourselves apart. Could you imagine if we forced every politician, every government employee, every person that sits on the bench, Supreme Court all the way down, that they had to memorize all the 7 Hermetic principles and then write an essay before they can take office, before they get one penny from the taxpayer, that they have to then write an essay that would be posted online, how they're going to apply the Hermetic principles to while they're in office serving the people. Stop all this nonsense in a second, folks. In a second. So for me, that's one of the traps. And because why? It immediately takes over your vibration. It forces you to begin to vibrate at a level that, well, basically you become more controlled than controlled. And it's just the way it is. And I wrote in here, don't get trapped by when you begin to hear this, that you begin to see immediate changes. It doesn't work that way. We have to work side by side the laws, and that includes nature. Nature never does something just like that. As I've been reading in my book, and I read this every day, it's just fascinating, that even the weather is nothing more than a series of cause and effect. And what I meant by finishing the thought, change your vibration 1 degree at a time. You'll be more successful, and you'll be much more fulfilled, and the sense of accomplishment that you can become a master begins to take front and center. So a little key for you on that one. So, I spend about a good hour just meditating, and there's different forms of meditating. We all have ours. But what I began to be impressed with is this. And this is for somebody, I'm not sure who, because you are what we would call an habitual worrier. You worry about everything, even the new knowledge that you're getting. You worry. And I just have a little word of encouragement for you. When you worry, you are vibrating at a rhythm that is low and will only attract like. Think about that. When you get into the pattern, and we all have done this, we're trained to do this. Our society trains us to worry. You just never know. That is a blatant lie. As we get further into the studies, we're going to find out there is no thing called luck or chance. None. Because if there is, then the all doesn't exist. It cannot exist outside of the all. Chance is nothing more than, basically how they put it, is an unrecognized law, principle. In fact, chance lies directly in the 6th principle, cause and effect. We're not there yet. Just giving you a little preview. And how this is explained, those of you who have the book, now. I try to send these out as quick as I can, and a lot of you are ordering it on Amazon. And I know a couple hundred of you have got the PDF copies. If you begin to read and let those words illuminate your soul, your spirit, you'll begin to find out that chance really, let's take the example they give is a dice game. Now, if any of you have been to Vegas or a casino and played craps, you know what I'm talking about. And we bet on what we perceive to be the calculated odds of how a pair of die is going to fall. But if we had been intelligent beings, we would have known immediately that there is a whole series of causes behind that set of dice. I mean, it goes to what did the individual throw like? How did he impact? What kind of force? What type of vibration? How was he impacting when he threw it? How the dice fell and it just goes on and on and on. We find out that there's nothing by chance. Even the most tragic accidents, the terrible things that befall some people, it's all back to causation. And it becomes very simple when we understand that. One other thing before we get going, I just want to say hello, everyone. People are coming in. How you doing? Rich, how are you doing? My Skies 5D, hello. Everyone else, Gravity Storm, Deborah, good to see you. The personal letters, the emails I'm getting, wow. I mean, that's all I can say is, wow. Who'd have thought? One other thing, I keep getting asked, what type of tea? So here you go. For you folks in America, you can get this, Celestial Seasonings. Many of you may not have it in your grocery stores. Go online if you want and buy it. It's great tea, folks. That's all I got to tell you. I've never had a particular bad cup. Although I did have one particular packet that seemed to have a little more pepper than I was used to. So anyway, let's get right into this because, I love it. I mean, long after we get finished with this is going to be something that I'm going to contemplate continuously. It never ends. Tomorrow night, when we have Anja on, who is a practicing witch, we're going to find out that, again, as we learned yesterday, what we call the occult, witchcraft, those type of things, even the Gnostics, is nothing more than psychic wisdom. Think about that. Okay, let's rock and roll, folks. Oh, tonight, by the way, real quick, on the artistfirstnetwork.com, go to artistfirst.com, and tonight I will be talking about, I know where the gods live. Every one of them. Every god of the Hebrew, the Sumerian, Mesopotamians, Egyptians, all the way through every religion. I think they live on Saturn. Sounds wild, doesn't it? But tune in tonight and it won't sound so wild. There's something seriously that we have been misdirected on. All right, let's get into chapter 6, the divine paradox. And many of what you have to work through is the paradoxes as one principle becomes established into your spirit and your psyche. It does begin to trigger off certain paradoxes. For me, for instance, I've known this for decades. I can never figure out in the book of Ephesians, particularly when Paul is writing, and I believe it's in Ephesians, the 3rd chapter, and it says that Jesus Christ created everything and nothing was created that was not created through him. Okay. So by that declaration, the writer, if it be Paul, whoever, it's really immaterial, is admitting that the Savior, Jesus, is both evil and good. Because you can't segue, you can't come in and parse out of that and say, no, God is only good. No, God is not only good. God is also evil. If he creates everything, nothing was created that was not created, but created through him. Well, then take responsibility, Jack. How can there ever be a judgment, folks, of you standing before some deity that is itself is guilty more than you are? You're part of the cause and the effect. Just saying. Get it out of your head. It's a fallacy. That's exactly what it is. They had a hard on when they were writing it, knowing what they were going to be screwing you with. It's just what it is. We read that in the first lesson. The half-wise, recognizing the comparative unreality of the universe, imagine that they may defy its laws. Such a vain and presumptuous fools, and they are broken against the rocks and torn asunder by the elements by reason of their folly. The truly wise, knowing the nature of the universe, use law against law, the higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy, and thus triumph. Mastery consists not only in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings or living, but in using the higher force against the lower, escaping the pains of the lower planes by vibrating on the higher. Transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master, the Kybalion. I mean, folks, we could just go word by word on this one alone. I mean, every sacred book that's out there is either a vision or a dream or the imaginings of the writer. No matter if you want to, quote, call it sacred or not. It's all right here. It's designed to transmutate you, to convert you. Think about it. This is the paradox of the universe, resulting from the principle of polarity, which manifests when the all begins to create. Hearken to it, for its points the difference between half wisdom and wisdom. While the infinite all, the universe, its laws, its powers, its life, its phenomena, are as things witnessed in the state of meditation or dream. Yet, to all that is finite, the universe must be treated as real, and life and action and thought must be based thereupon accordingly, although with an ever understanding of the higher truth, each according to its own plane and laws. We're the all to imagine that the universe were indeed reality, then woe unto our sorry butts and the universe. There would be then no escape from the lower to the higher, divineward. Then would the universe become a fixity, and progress would become impossible. Think about that. And if man, owing to half wisdom, acts and lives and thinks of the universe as merely a dream, akin to his own finite dreams, then indeed does it so become for him? And like a sleepwalker, he stumbles ever around and around and around in a circle, making no progress and being forced into an awakening at last by his falling, bruised, and bleeding over the natural laws which he ignored. Keep in mind ever on the star, but let your eyes watch over your footsteps, lest you fall into the mire by reason of your upward gaze. How many people do we know? We all get, you see, the thing about this is, when I say how many, it's us. Let's be honest. Let's be intellectually honest in this group amongst each other. We've all had to deal with these issues. I mean, you get tripped out and you begin to find out how the stars, constellations, and everything else, you can become so one-sided minded that you become unbalanced. And you stumble and you fall. You become prey. You become a victim. You become a casualty. Remember the divine paradox that while the universe is not, still it is. Remember ever the two poles of truth, the absolute and the relative. Beware of half-truths. What Hermenists know as the law of paradox is an aspect of the principle of polarity. The Hermetic writings are filled with references to the appearance of the paradox in the consideration of the problems of life and being. The teachers are constantly warning their students against the error of omitting the other side of any question. And their warnings are particularly directed to the problems of the absolute and relative, which perplex all students of philosophy, and which cause so many to think and act contrary to what is generally known as common sense. I have a number of t-shirts that say common sense is not so common. Little anecdote here. My 5th grade teacher, Miss Buttons, who I earned her respect and admiration, strict woman, but anyway, on the day after school was out, she asked me to come back and help put up the stuff in the classroom. And since I was going to be moving on to the 6th grade, I still remember this, folks. Hot. It was in June, and we're sitting on the ledge of the windows, and she looked at me and she said, "Wayne, you're a brilliant mind. But," she says, "I want to tell you something. And if you remember this," she said, "this will serve you better than all of your book learning." She said, "An ounce of common sense will outdo a pound of book learning any day." And Miss Buttons, wherever you are on your continuing journey, thank you for imparting such wisdom to such a young mind. We move on. And we caution all students to be sure to grasp the divine paradox of the absolute and relative, lest they become entangled in the mire of the half-truth. With this in view, this particular lesson has been written. Read it carefully. Excuse me, folks. I had a frog in my throat. The first thought that comes to the thinking man after he realizes the truth that the universe is a mental creation of the all is that the universe and all that it contains is a mere illusion, an unreality, against which idea his instincts revolt. But this, like all other great truths, must be considered both from the absolute, excuse me, mercy. I hate when that happens. You'll have to pause for a second, folks. Okay, I'm back. Boy, it goes down the wrong pipe. It's like you can't reverse that cause and effect. Wow. All right, get back to the reading. And from the absolute viewpoint, of course, the universe is in the nature of an illusion, a dream, a phantasmagoria, it as compared to the all itself. We recognize this even in our ordinary view. For we speak of the world as a fleeting show that comes and goes, is born and dies. For the element of impermanence and change, finiteness and unsubstantiality must ever be connected with the idea of a created universe when it is contrasted with the idea of the all. No matter what may be our beliefs concerning the nature of both, philosophers, metaphysicists, scientists, theologians all agree upon this idea. And the thought is found in all forms of philosophical thought and religious conceptions, as well as in the theories of the respective schools of metaphysics and theology. So the Hermetic teachings do not preach the unsubstantiability of the universe in any stronger terms than those more familiar to you, although their presentation of the subject may seem somewhat more startling. Anything that has a beginning and an ending must be, in a sense, unreal and untrue. And the universe comes under the rule in all schools of thought. Think about this, folks. You and I are going to drop these bodies. Now, we know spirit, which cannot be touched, cannot be defined, can't even really be known. But yet it's a part of us. And so, where do we go? Do we look back on this plane? Can we look back on this plane? My question is, do we carry forth the memories? We didn't apparently have them here because we certainly got a good case of amnesia along the way. So what happens here? Is all realities based upon the lifetime that we spent in this plane? Do we have to begin to reorient ourselves to the next plane of reality? And hopefully, many of us that you're listening to my voice, we're saying, we ain't coming back. I'm going to take this serious, Jack. Yeah. From the absolute point of view, there is nothing real except the all, no matter what terms we may use in thinking of or discussing the subject. Whether the universe be created of matter or whether it be a mental creation in the mind of the all, it is unsubstantial, non-enduring, a thing of time, space, and change. We want you to realize this fact thoroughly before you pass judgment on the Hermetic conceptions of the mental nature of the universe. Think over any and all of the other conceptions and see whether this be true, not true of them. But the absolute point of view shows merely one side of the picture. The other side is the relative one about truth. Absolute truth has been defined as things as mind of God knows them. Absolute truth is defined things as the mind of God knows them. Okay. While relative truth is things as the highest reason of man understands them. Wow. Absolute truth, things as God, as the mind of God knows them. Relative truth, things as man understands them. Okay, I don't know about you, but the thoughts are going shing, ding, ding. And so while to the all, the universe must be unreal and illusionary, a mere dream or result of meditation, nevertheless, to the finite minds forming a part of that universe and viewing it through mortal faculties, the universe is real, very real indeed, and must be considered as so. In recognizing the absolute view, we must not make the mistake of ignoring or denying the facts and phenomenon of the universe as they present themselves to our mortal faculties. We are not the all. Remember that. To take a familiar illustration, We all recognize the fact that matter exists to our senses. We will fare badly if we do not. Yeah. And when even our finite minds understand the scientific dictum that there is no such thing as matter from a scientific point of view, that which we call matter is held to be merely an aggregation of atoms, which atoms themselves are merely a grouping of units of force called electrons or ions, vibrating in a constant circular motion. We kick a stone and we feel the impact. It seems to be real, notwithstanding that we know it to be merely what we have stated above. But remember that our foot, which feels the impact by means of our brains, is likewise matter, so constituted of electrons, and for that matter, so are our brains. And at the best, if it were not by reason of our mind, we would not know the foot or the stone at all. I mean, it's like I've asked so many times. What's the difference between a ghost and a spirit? And how do they know where the floor is or where the ceiling is? How do they even know? You get into all this and you're going, okay. But the foot and the stone are made of the same material in the same plane, cause and effect. Then again, the ideal of the artist or sculptor, which he is endeavoring to reproduce in stone or on canvas, seems very real to him. So do the characters in the mind of the author or the dramatist, which he seeks to express so that others may recognize them. How many of us go watch a movie? For 2 hours, you become immersed into that reality. You are the characters. And if this be true, in the case of our finite minds, what must be the degree of reality in the mental images created by the mind of the infinite? Oh, friends, to mortals, this universe of mentality is very real indeed. It is the only one we ever know. Though we rise from plane to plane, higher and higher in it. To know it otherwise, but actual experience, we must be the all itself. It is true that the higher we rise in the scale, the nearer to the mind of the Father we reach. The more apparent becomes the illusionary nature of finite things, but not until the all finally withdraws us into itself does the vision actually vanish. So, we need not dwell upon the feature of illusion. Rather, let us, recognizing the real nature of the universe, seek to understand its mental laws and endeavor to use them to the best effort in our upward progress through life as we travel from plane to plane of being. The laws of the universe are nonetheless iron laws because of the mental nature. All, except the all, are bound by them. What is in the infinite mind of the all is real, in a degree second only to the reality itself, which is vested in the nature of the all. So, do not feel insecure or afraid. We are all held firmly in the finite mind of the all. And there is nothing to hurt us, for us to be afraid of. There is no power outside of the all to affect us. So we may rest calm and secure. There is a world of comfort and security in this realization when once attained. And remember, folks, knowledge never becomes knowledge until it becomes personal knowledge to you. Hermes warned you. And those who, and there have been many of them who've walked away from this, their ears are not ready to hear. Maybe they never will be. I don't know. But this right here is another key. Then, calm and peaceful do we sleep, rocked in the cradle of the deep. resting safely on the bosom of the ocean of infinite mind, which is the all. In the all, indeed, do we live and move and have our beings. That's written in every religion right there, in one form or translation. Matter is nonetheless matter to us. While we dwell on the plane of matter, although we know it to be merely an aggregation of electrons or particles of force vibrating rapidly and gyrating around each other in the formations of atoms. The atoms, in turn, vibrating and gyrating, form molecules, which later, in turn, form larger masses of matter. Nor does matter become less matter. When we follow the inquiry still further and learn from the Hermetic teachings that the force of which the electrons are but units is merely a manifestation of the mind of the all, and, like all else in the universe, is purely mental in its nature, while on the plane of matter, we must recognize its phenomena. We may control matter, as all masters of higher or lesser degree do, and believe it or not, you do to a degree are a master of matter. It's just a matter of how much. But we do so by applying the higher forces. We commit a folly when we attempt to deny the existence of matter in the relative aspect. We may deny its mastery over us, and rightly so, but we should not attempt to ignore it in its relative aspect, at least so long as we dwell on this plane. Face it, folks, you gotta apply and play by the rules. You can't just pick up your marbles and say, I ain't playing. Well, you ain't staying. Nor do the laws of nature become less constant or effective when we know them, likewise, to be merely mental creations. They are in full effect on the various planes. We overcome the lower laws by applying still higher ones, and in this way only. But we cannot escape law or rise above it entirely. Nothing but the all can escape law. And that's because the all is law itself, from which all laws emerge. The most advanced masters may acquire the powers usually attributed to the gods of men, and there are countless ranks of being in the great hierarchy of life, whose being and power transcends even that of the highest masters among men to a degree unthinkable by mortals. But even the highest master and the highest being must bow to the law and be as nothing in the eye of the all. So that if even these highest beings, whose powers exceed even those attributed by men to their gods, if even these are bound by and are subservient to law, then imagine the presumption of mortal man, of our race and grade, when he dares to consider the laws of nature as unreal, visionary, illusionary, because he happens to be able to grasp the truth that the laws are mental in nature and simply mental creations of the all. Those laws, which the all intends to be governing laws, are not to be defied or argued away. So long as the universe endures, will they endure? For the universe exists by virtue of these laws, which forms its framework and which are held together. The Hermetic principles of mentalism, while explaining the true nature of the universe upon the principle that all is mental, does not change the scientific conceptions of the universe, life, or evolution. In fact, science merely collaborates the Hermetic teachings. The latter merely teaches that the nature of the universe is mental, while modern science has taught that it is material, or of late, that it is energy. At the latest analysis, they got trapped. The Hermetic teachings have no fault to find with Herbert Spencer's basic principle, which postulates the existence of an infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. In fact, the Hermetics recognize in Spencer's philosophy the highest outside statement of the workings of the natural laws that have ever been promulgated. And they believe Spencer to have been a reincarnation of an ancient philosopher who dwelt in the ancient Egypt thousands of years ago, and who later incarnated as Hercules and the Grecian philosopher who lived BC 500. And they regarded his statements of the infinite and eternal energy as directly in line of the Hermetic teachings, always with the addition of their own doctrine, that his energy is the energy of the mind of the all. With the master key of the Hermetic philosophy, the student of Spencer will be able to unlock many doors of the inner philosophical conceptions of the great English philosopher, whose work shows the results of a preparation of his previous incarnations. His teachings regarding evolution and rhyme are in almost perfect agreement with the Hermetic teachings regarding the principles of rhythm. So, the student of Hermetics need not lay aside any of his cherished scientific views regarding the universe. All he is asked to do is to grasp the underlying principle of the all is mind. The universe is mental, held in the mind of the all. He will find that the other 6 of the 7 principles will fit into his scientific knowledge like a glove, and will serve to bring out obscure points and to throw light in the dark corners. This is not to be wondered at when we realize the influence of the Hermetic thought of early philosophers and Greeks, whose foundations of thought and theories of modern science largely rest. The acceptance of the first Hermetic principle, mentalism, is the only great point of difference between modern science and Hermetic students. And science is gradually moving towards the Hermetic position in its groping in the dark for a way out of the labyrinth into which it has wandered in its search for reality. I mean, I read paper after paper, see video after video. They can't find this dark matter. I can't find it anywhere. They can't find this dark energy. We can't seem to capture it. I like what one person wrote me. I think it was Maggie May. Said, maybe it's thought that is that which cannot be discovered. Good thinkers here. The purpose of this lesson is to impress upon the minds of our students the fact that, to all intents and purposes, the universe and its laws and its phenomena are just as real, so far as man is concerned, as they would be under the hypothesis of materialism or energism. Under any hypothesis, the universe in its outer aspects is changing, ever-flowing, transitory, and therefore devoid of substantiality and reality. But note the other pole of the truth. Under the same hypothesis, we are compelled to act and live as if the fleeting things were real and substantial. With this difference, always between the various hypotheses, that under the old views, mental power was ignored as a natural force, while under mentalism, it becomes the greatest natural force. And this one difference revolutionizes life to those who understand the principle and its resulting laws and practice. So finally, students, all grasp the advantage of mentalism and learn to know, use, and apply the laws resulting therefrom. But do not yield to the temptation which, as the Kybalion states, overcomes the half-wise and which causes them to be hypnotized by the apparently unreality of things. The consequences being that they wander about like dream people, dwelling in a world of dreams, ignoring the practical work and life of man. The end being that they are broken against the rocks and torn asunder by the elements by reason of their folly. We don't want that. Rather, follow the example of the wise, which the same authority states, use law against laws, the higher against the lower, and by the act of alchemy, transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy, and thus triumph. Following the authority, let us avoid the half-wisdom, which is folly, which ignores the truth that mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings or living, but in using the higher forces against the lower, escaping the pains of the lower planes by vibrating on the higher. Remember always, student, that transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. The above quotations are from the Kybalion and are worthy of being committed to memory by the student. We do not live in a world of dreams, but in a universe which, while relative, is real so far as our lives and actions are concerned. Our business in the universe is not to deny the existence, but to live, using the laws to rise from lower to higher, living on, doing the best that we can under the circumstances arising each day, and living, so far as possible, to our biggest ideas and ideals. The true meaning of life is not known to men on this plane, if indeed to any. But the highest authorities and our own intuitions teach us that we will make no mistake in living up to the best that is in us, so far as it is possible, and realizing the universal tendency in the same direction in spite of apparent evidence to the contrary. We are all on the path, and the roads leads upwards ever, with frequent resting places. Amen on that one. Read the message of the Kybalion and follow the example of the wise, avoiding the mistake of half-wise, who perish by reason of their folly. Wow. Okay. How was that one, huh? Wow. Okay. Now, there we go. I'm going to make this one a little short because I still got to produce the show tonight. But yeah, some heavy stuff. I mean, that's like the 5th time I've read it in the last 5 days. And every time I'm reading this, the mental imagery in my mind is painting pictures. One person said that they see fractals. Doesn't surprise me. I think many of us see to where we are and what our levels are. And many of us see things differently. We process them differently. But I'll tell you, I don't, my feeling is this: the evidence will be self-evident. And I know for myself and my wife and some close others that are in this, it's changing them. And the thing that I love about this, it doesn't matter whether you're young or old. I think maybe, now I know that there are some rather influential people that listen to this. Why don't we get together and start influencing the schools to start putting into the curriculum their Hermetic teachings. I have a vision, if we can survive that far down, talking about time, imagine teaching 5- and 6-year-olds the Hermetic principles, and it follows them all the rest of their days. Wow. What do you think that they would be by the time they become adolescents? What do you think they would be when they become young adults? What do you think they will be when they become midlifers? And what do you think the end of their road will be when they become advancers? That's what we should call, we always like to call the elderly. No, they're advancers. They're advancing down. I think we could change the world, folks. We could change this world to a utopia, but keeping in balance. I mean, we're going to have evil. It's just the nature of it. But I think that we can begin to influence even the archons. Because this is a battle. There's no doubt about it, folks. It's a battle of the soul. It's a battle of the spirit. It's a battle for our lives. And, you know, I don't like the idea of coming back. I mean, listen, if someone wanted to come back, someone told me, he said, well, this is probably why you came back. Well, what a circuitous route that was to get here. But the journey and the experience was worth the price of the admission. Yeah, I agree with you, Claudette. There's so much bigotry today. I mean, I don't watch TV, don't care to. I don't even like sports anymore. It's like I've just become, I don't know. I'm not living here anymore, is what I'm saying. I'm here, but I'm not. And I think a lot of you are feeling the same way and have. And now we know why. We're learning. I don't know if you can stop, because according to the sixth principle, the principle of cause and effect, we're having a lot of causation. What we're doing right here, just reading these words over the internet. Serious causation. And as you continue to read, I had a delightful email from listeners over in the UK. How are you doing, all you over in the UK? And she said, my husband and I, this is what we do in the evenings. We come and we listen to this. And I thought to myself, those people's lives are never going to be the same. It's contagious. It is a contagion in the sense of the word. The rhema of the logos goes off. It's how we change. And I can't prove this, but something tells me that when we're all on the same mental plane, unified in a group like this, that we're having effective change as well. I mean, there's some weird stuff going on in my life. Just to give you an example, as I close this out, in my garage, I keep the radio on, like classic rock and roll. And the amount of times that this is happening, my wife at first didn't quite believe it. Now she's kind of really going, what's going on here? I can go out into my garage at random times during the day, and guess what will either be playing or will be the next song while I'm out there in the garage doing what I'm doing? Led Zeppelin. All the time. Now, I know the history of Led Zeppelin. They happen to be believers in Saturn. Their sigil of Saturn is on their albums, have been since the very beginning. What's up with that? I mean, tonight, listen on the Artist First Network. I'll be talking about that. Lots written on this, folks. A lot written on this. And I don't know. You have to be observant. You know, the video that I showed with the UFOs from the telescope there in Rome, Italy, July 28th. Fleets. Then the video by Paula Gilly. You know, was that Saturn that was letting unleash whatever we were witnessing? There's enough, how shall we say, old documents that say that this is the home of the Yahweh called Jehovah. I wonder if this could also be the place for Muhammad. I wonder if this is where the Hindu gods went to. Don't know. Something to think about. All right, folks. Thank you for stopping by. It's an honor, a pleasure to be of service. And, you know, I thank you. And we continue to go on. Hey, let's start changing our vibration. So I want to leave with a little positive upbeat here. It starts with a single thought. And if you know when something happens and how you immediately internalize it, when you stop and realize what your thoughts, your body, how it's reacting, and you start mentally changing it, saying, no, I'm not going to react to this way. I'm going to react. And I know that the pendulum swings. I know the law of polarity. I know the law of vibration, and I know the law of rhythm. That's how it starts. And once you start having one success, it'll become insatiable. Next thing you know, you got the kids loving you, your husband, your wife's falling back in love with you, and you're finding out you're being able to prosper and your health is improving. Imagine that. Brian, I'll check it out. Send me a link. Love to. All right, folks, be good. Be a harbor of light. Yeah, David, I like that. I like that. I think we're all, you know, lighthouses. And when we start getting together, we're going to start affecting this universe. And let's see what happens. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow night, Anja. Next Friday night, we got Doc Ram coming on. You know that's going to be fun. And we're going to see. We're going to be talking about these principles. I can't wait to hear how Dr. Miller expounds upon it. All right, folks, all my best to you. Be good to yourselves. We'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.